Welcome to the Remedify Coaching Program podcast. Today, we're embarking on a really important exploration together, something that the sources you've shared with us make incredibly clear. The fundamental role of rest in our overall well-being. It's so much more than just, hitting the pause button on our busy lives. As one of your articles powerfully stated, your health truly is your wealth, and rest is, well, a cornerstone of that health. Our goal in this deep dive is to unpack this rich concept of rest, to look at its many different forms, and to discover practical, everyday strategies that you can weave into your life to feel more energized, more balanced, and ultimately more well.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, how our modern world often equates busyness with value. It's almost like being constantly on the go is a badge of honor. But we look at what your sources provide, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself. We see that true rest isn't simply the absence of activity. It's an active process of renewal, a way to intentionally replenish the different reserves within us.
Absolutely. What really struck me in the material was this idea of a rest deficit. It painted such a vivid picture. One of the articles used this beautiful analogy of life as a symphony. All the tasks and responsibilities are the notes we play. But it's the rests, those moments of silence between the notes that give the music its depth, its feeling, its very structure. Without those pauses, it's just, well, a wall of sound.
It's such a resonant way to put it. Yeah, and think about what happens when a musician ignores those rests. The music becomes rushed, strained, and ultimately it just loses its impact. Similarly, when we consistently push through life without those crucial pauses, we accumulate this rest deficit. And as your sources clearly outline, this isn't just about feeling a bit tired. It can lead to a truly discordant existence characterized by persistent fatigue, mounting stress, and the eventual risk of burnout. It's like trying to run a marathon without ever stopping for water. Eventually, you're going to crash.
Exactly. And it's not just about feeling tired physically. I know for me, sometimes I can feel utterly drained even if I haven't been, physically exerting myself. That's where the idea that rest is multifaceted really hit home for me.
Precisely. And this is where Dr. Sandra Dalton-Smith's framework, which was highlighted in one of your shared articles, offers such a valuable lens. It really expands our understanding beyond just sleep, showing us that there are actually 7 distinct types of rest that we need to nurture.
Okay, let's delve into these 7 types. The first one is physical rest, and like most people, my mind immediately goes to sleep, but the sources emphasize that it's actually broader than that, right?
Absolutely. Sleep is undeniably vital for physical restoration, allowing our bodies to repair and rebuild, of course. But physical rest also encompasses other forms of passive rest, like simply lying down and consciously relaxing, or maybe taking a nap to give your body a midday reset. But what's particularly insightful is the concept of active rest.
Active rest. That sounds a bit like an oxymoron. How can you be active and resting at the same time?
Well, it might seem counterintuitive, yeah. But active rest refers to gentle, restorative activities. Think yoga, tai chi, stretching, or even receiving a massage. These aren't about strenuous exertion. Instead, they focus on promoting circulation, reducing muscle tension, and improving flexibility. What's fascinating is that these activities can often help to recharge the body in a way that simply being still sometimes can't. And they can also have a wonderful effect on calming the mind, too.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about intentionally moving in ways that facilitate recovery rather than, expenditure of energy. Okay. The next type is mental rest. And this is one that I think many of us in our constantly stimulated world really struggle with. Even when we get enough sleep, sometimes our minds still feel like they're racing a mile a minute.
Oh, that's such a common experience in our hyper-connected age. Definitely. Mental rest isn't just about the absence of mental work. It's about actively quieting that internal chatter, that constant stream of thoughts, worries, and to-do list that seems to run on an endless loop in our heads.
And the sources offered some really practical suggestions for cultivating mental rest, like taking short, intentional breaks during the workday. I know I'm definitely guilty of just powering through without giving my brain a breather.
Uh-huh. Those short breaks are incredibly valuable. Even just a minute or two to step away from your screen, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths can make a significant difference in reducing mental fatigue. Journaling, especially before bed, can be a helpful way to offload some of those racing thoughts that might otherwise keep you awake. And then there's the concept of thought diffusion.
Thought diffusion. That sounds like a useful tool in our mental rest toolkit. Can you explain that a bit more?
Certainly. Thought diffusion is basically a set of techniques aimed at changing your relationship with your thoughts. So instead of getting caught up in the content of every thought that pops into your head, you learn to observe them from a distance, without judgment or attachment. Like, imagine you have a thought like, I'm not good enough. Instead of immediately believing that thought and letting it dictate your mood, thought diffusion helps you to recognize it as just a thought, a mental event that doesn't necessarily reflect reality. It's kind of like noticing a commercial on TV, you see it, but you don't have to buy what they're selling. It creates some much-needed mental space.
That's a really helpful analogy. Okay, right. Moving on to sensory rest. In our modern environment, with the constant barrage of screens, notifications, and noise, this feels more crucial than ever.
Absolutely. Our senses are constantly being bombarded with information. The bright lights and flickering images from our devices, the incessant notifications vying for our attention, the constant hum of conversations and background noise. Ugh. Sensory rest is about intentionally minimizing this sensory input to give our overwhelmed senses a chance to recover.
And the sources talked about the benefit of intentional sensory deprivation, which, okay, might sound a bit drastic, but I understand the underlying principle. Even making small changes, like having a designated screen-free period before bed, can likely have a positive impact.
Exactly. Small steps. And one of your articles also mentioned five senses grounding as a technique for promoting sensory rest in a more active way. Could you share a bit about that?
Oh, sure. Five senses grounding is a mindfulness technique that helps you anchor yourself in the present moment. You intentionally focus on what you can perceive through each of your five senses, what you can see right now, what you can hear, what you can smell, maybe taste, and what you can physically touch. By deliberately directing your attention to these sensory experiences, you can gently shift away from overwhelming thoughts or external stimuli and find a sense of calm and presence. It gives your overloaded senses a much-needed break.
It's a fantastic way to consciously dial down the sensory noise and find a pocket of quiet amidst the chaos. Really practical. Okay, next we have creative rest. This is an interesting one because I think many people don't immediately link creativity with the idea of rest.
That's so true, yeah. We often associate creativity with intense focus and active problem solving, don't we? But the sources highlighted the idea that creativity actually flourishes when we allow for spaciousness and downtime.
Precisely. Creative rest is about stepping away from the tasks that demand our creative output, allowing our minds to wander and make unexpected connections. It's kind of like letting a field lie fallow for a season so that it can regenerate and yield a more abundant harvest later on.
And the examples provided were so simple and accessible, taking leisurely walks, doodling without a specific goal in mind, or simply gazing out the window. It almost feels counterintuitive that these seemingly unproductive moments can actually be powerful fuel for innovation and fresh ideas.
But it makes perfect sense when you consider that our brains are constantly processing information, even when we're not consciously focused on a particular problem. Giving them that unstructured time allows for those subconscious connections to form. It's really quite amazing. Then we move on to emotional rest, which feels incredibly vital for our overall well-being.
Absolutely. Navigating our emotions, even the positive ones, can be energetically demanding. And the sources acknowledge that our emotional landscape also requires periods of respite.
Emotional rest is about creating a safe space to acknowledge and process your feelings, both positive and negative, without judgment or suppression. It also involves setting healthy boundaries to protect yourself from emotionally draining situations and seeking out relationships where you feel seen, heard, and validated. It's about giving yourself permission to not always have to be strong or on emotionally.
It's about recognizing that it's okay to step back from emotionally demanding situations when we need to, and to allow ourselves the time and space to recharge our emotional batteries without feeling guilty about it.
Exactly. And that naturally leads us to social rest. Human connection is essential for our well-being. We all know that. But as your sources wisely pointed out, the quality of those connections is paramount, and even positive social interactions can sometimes be draining.
Oh, it's so true. We all have those relationships that leave us feeling energized and uplifted, and others that, for whatever reason, leave us feeling depleted.
Yeah. Social rest is about being intentional about where we invest our social energy. It means prioritizing spending time with people who are supportive, understanding, and genuinely bring joy to our lives. It also involves setting healthy boundaries with relationships that tend to be more draining. And importantly, it includes recognizing the value of solitude and giving ourselves permission to seek it out when we need to recharge our social batteries.
That's a really important distinction, that social rest isn't necessarily about becoming a hermit, but about being mindful and intentional about our social interactions. Okay, finally, we arrive at spiritual rest. I really appreciated that the sources defined this broadly, extending beyond traditional religious affiliations.
Absolutely. And that's important. In this context, spiritual rest is about connecting with something larger than ourselves. Whether that's a sense of purpose, a feeling of meaning, a connection to nature, or a guiding philosophy or set of values, it's about finding that deep sense of inner peace and tapping into something that nourishes your soul.
And the examples offered, spending time in nature, engaging in meditation or contemplative practices, or pursuing activities that align with your values, really highlight this personal connection and search for meaning. So, okay, we have this comprehensive understanding now of the 7 different types of rest. Now, the crucial question is, how do we actually integrate these into our busy everyday lives?
That's the key, isn't it? Transforming this knowledge into tangible benefits. The sources you provided offered some really practical strategies. One of the most important is to intentionally schedule rest intervals into your day, just as you would schedule important meetings or appointments. It's about making rest a non-negotiable part of your routine, rather than something you try to squeeze in if you happen to have time left over.
And they talked about the power of work break rhythms, which really resonated with me. Setting a timer to work in focused bursts, followed by short, dedicated breaks to step away from your tasks, stretch, or simply breathe. It sounds so simple, but in the busyness of the day, it's so easy to overlook. Oh, definitely. Those short, regular breaks can be incredibly effective in preventing the buildup of mental and sensory fatigue. It really is about working smarter, not just harder. And then there are the bedtime rituals, creating a consistent and calming pre-sleep routine. This could include activities like journaling, reading a physical book, not on a screen, taking a warm bath, or doing some gentle stretches. These rituals signal to your body and mind that it's time to wind down and prepare for sleep.
Definitely. And prioritizing sufficient and consistent sleep is, of course, foundational for physical rest and so many other aspects of our well-being. It's the baseline, really.
Absolutely. The sources emphasize the importance of trying to maintain a consistent sleep schedule, even on weekends if possible, to help regulate your body's natural sleep-wake cycle. They also highlighted the impact of your sleep environment, ensuring your bedroom is cool, dark, and quiet. Investing in comfortable bedding can significantly improve the quality of your sleep, too. Little things matter. Right. And finally, there's the intentional practice of mindful rest, which kind of circles back to some of the mental and sensory types of rest we discussed earlier.
Exactly. Re-emphasizing the value of thought diffusion as a way to observe your thoughts without getting entangled in them, allowing them to pass by without disrupting your peace. And the practice of sensory detox, consciously carving out time each day, especially before bed, to unplug from screens and minimize sensory stimulation. It's about creating those intentional pockets of calm in our often hectic days.
This deep dive into the art of rest has truly illuminated that it's not a passive state, but an active and intentional practice with so many different dimensions. It's quite complex when you break it down. By understanding these 7 types of rest and actively incorporating these practical strategies into our lives, we can really take proactive steps to nurture our overall well-being amidst the demands of daily life. It's about recognizing that, as your sources so wisely pointed out, your health is your wealth, and rest is a vital and ongoing investment in that most precious asset.
And what's so empowering about this framework is the realization that we have agency in this process. We can consciously choose to prioritize these different forms of rest. It's not about adding more tasks to our already full plates, but about strategically integrating moments of replenishment that will ultimately enhance our effectiveness, our resilience, and our overall sense of balance and well-being. It actually makes you more productive in the long run.
We sincerely hope this deep dive has provided you with valuable insights into the profound importance and the diverse forms of rest. Please remember, prioritizing rest is not a luxury to be indulged in when you have spare time. It is a fundamental pillar of your health, your happiness, and your overall well-being.
For more in-depth resources and to further support you on your journey toward a more balanced and well-rested life, we really encourage you to visit the Revetify Coaching Program, the RCP, at https://website.beacons.aa/2020. Remember, your health is your responsibility, and we're here to support you on that path.
Yeah, take some dedicated time this week to reflect on the different types of rest we've explored, and maybe identify even small, meaningful ways that you can begin to integrate them into your daily routine. What kind of silent pauses can you mindfully introduce into the symphony of your own life?
And as you consider that, what's one specific, actionable step that maybe stands out to you right now? Something you could implement in the very near future to prioritize your rest?
For me, thinking about it now, it's a renewed commitment to those short work break rhythms. I really tend to get so engrossed in what I'm doing that I often forget to step away. And I truly believe that incorporating those brief breaks throughout the day will make a noticeable difference in my mental clarity and sustained energy levels. That's my takeaway.
That's a wonderful and very achievable goal.
Hmm.
Seriously. Even small, consistent efforts in this area can yield significant benefits over time. And, as we've discussed, remember that your health is your responsibility, and making rest a priority is a crucial aspect of honoring that responsibility.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the art of rest on the Remedify Coaching Program podcast.